Welcome back to Forest Hill United Methodist Church's podcast, It Takes a Village. I am Reverend Mandy Neal.
And I'm Reverend Justin Snyder.
So today we're chatting with Justin about his ministry at Forest Hill and how that is developing into the new project at Gibson Village. So we're excited to unpack some of the things that are happening in your life and your ministry. So let's jump in with just explaining what your role is as we know it. So I know it may change and it's growing and developing, but give us an idea of what you feel like the role is at Gibson for you.
Yeah, I think so. When we first started talking about this, it's like you said, it's changed a lot. It seems like every week something new develops along the way that we kind of adapt to. But my role specifically, as we think about Gibson Village, is more of the spiritual care, the focus on worship. So this would be like designing whatever our worship service looks like. It could be thinking about ways that we do discipleship, whether that's small groups, enabling time for people to have conversations about their spiritual life. So that's kind of one of the areas. The other area, which we've kind of been fleshing out for a while, which is really, really exciting, is our discernment team. So we have about 10 people on a team that are members of the church who have either been here since they were born, or they are people who have come to the church recently, and they just have a wide variety of perspectives and things that they bring with them. Their experiences, what they have learned or what they have witnessed when being a part of our church or being a part of other churches, and also just some new and wonderful ideas for ways that we can really think about worship in a way that's really intentional, in a way that really seeks to be a place of like this discipleship, what I was saying. So this way of nurturing relationships rooted and centered in their faith, and the way we talk about that, and the way we explore it, and the way we discuss it in small groups, and the way we live that out as a church.
So this discernment team, tell me a little bit about what they're doing.
So we have a discernment team. They started meeting in January. And at the time I thought, I'm going to send out this really long list of a lot of people, and half of them are going to say no, because it's a lot to ask someone to be on a committee, especially when you realize a committee is probably going to meet more than like once a quarter. So we try to meet once a month, and almost everybody said, absolutely, I am in this thing. And so we have met to first talk about the vision, cast the vision with them, share a little bit of how we've gotten to this point, but also hear their stories about how they became a part of Forest Hill, how it was something that was meaningful to them, and the things that they really value, the things that have shaped who they are as a follower of Christ and as a part of the church, and also the things that they really feel that we have to offer to others, the things that are rooted in something that they're passionate about. And how we can talk about those things, and how we can share and bear witness to what that looks like in ways that can be good for our broader community. So we've met. I joke, anytime you're in a committee, you always have like the meeting, and then you have the meeting after the meeting. And sometimes that feels like an exclusive committee afterwards, but really in our case, we have a meeting and then we have a meeting after, because everyone is so excited to continue the conversation that they all stay, that they're all a part of it, and they are still brainstorming these things and these ideas that we can do. And so it's really exciting. And I joke like our 1 hour meeting is 2.5, but it's 2.5 because I can't get the door shut and the lights turned off, because everyone's just so excited to talk about things, to share some ideas along the way. And so we've done a little bit of that. We have talked with them about this small business incubator space, which is a part of it, which isn't necessarily their primary focus, but it's a part of this broader vision that we have. So they get to hear about that and talk about it, and even share the ways that they have heard of this concept or seen parts of it. And we talk about things like that. But really, it's as much as it's a committee, it's also like a microcosm of the community of the church. And so it's just been a really great space.
Yeah, so because I get to sit on the committee, I have experienced just the wonderful excitement and just the organic nature for which conversation comes up and
Mm-hmm.
bubbles up, and just how the Holy Spirit is at work in that, and how we walk in thinking maybe one thing will come out of it, and a totally another thing that's even more amazing really shapes and forms. So
Yeah.
that's really it's been fun to be a part of.
Yeah, so we're doing prayer together as a team, and we're using this book, and it's called Dynamite Prayer, and it's talking all about how like we have to be open to the Holy Spirit, like we have to be aware of what our vision and our goals are, but also be attuned to what God is doing in the midst of it. And so every day as we're reading through our daily devotion, like it's very much steeped in like what is God doing and are you being open to it? And I think that's one of the really exciting things that I'm seeing happen and bubble up in this group is like everyone is really open. We're not fixated on an idea, and because of that, the Spirit is able to work more fully in what we're doing, and that feels good to feel like we are being prayerful and rooted in our faith in that.
So it is a journey, and you've kind of been on your own personal journey in your time here at Forest Hill. So you came at least a year before me, or maybe some around a year before me. So you've been here about 11 years, and your journey into ministry has happened in that time. And we have, the people who've been around for a long time, have seen you really grow and develop. And so, thinking back on that, how has the last 11 years prepared you for this moment of ministry?
So it's really funny to think I've been here for 11 years. If you ask anyone who was in choir when I first started, they all remind me that I was 15. I wasn't 15. I was like 24 or 25.
You
But
just look like you were
I looked
15.
like I was a baby. My hair was much longer, especially more longer than it is today. But my hair was much longer, and so I was just really young, and I was fresh out of undergrad, and I was working in the school system, and I had always been a part of music ministry, and so this was a place that I had begun to do some music ministry, and so they became kind of part of my faith community early on when I got here, as I was integrated into the life of the church. And then that has just grown and grown throughout the years beyond the walls of like the choir room. And so to think about like where I first started, and to think about kind of what that trajectory has looked like, because when I first got here, I thought I am doing music ministry because my goal in life is to do music. I am teaching; that's my full time thing, and then this part time thing at the church. It's something that I had always been a part of, and I always wanted to be a part of my life. Even when I was in college and when I was like young, music and ministry in the church were just really important. But I didn't give it much thought beyond the function of music, so I didn't really think about. My spiritual journey as something that could have been something beyond leading a choir or playing the piano. And the more I was here, and the more I felt like I was really able to be a full part of this church, it really opened up my eyes to kind of the ways that I hadn't recognized that God was working, and the ways that I was living out kind of my call into some sort of ministry, and I really thought that was music. And it took some time, and I realized that the thing that I was called to was really this thing that music afforded me an opportunity to do. And so it was the same thing when I was teaching. So I valued community. I valued like belonging. I saw music as this place where I could extend that to other people. Um, and it's funny how my mind could not see that that was something a little bigger than just music, but it was something that I was called to as a part of the fuller life of the church. And so after some time, I kind of transitioned out of teaching, and so when I came here full time, I was doing ministry. I was a ministry coordinator, I think was my title, which was really we all know it's whatever has to happen in the church. So like air conditioners or construction projects or maybe a small group or something, and that was really fun because I got to be here. It was a place I came whenever I had a day off from school, and sometimes I took a day off and I came here anyway. But it was really fun to do that. And while I was doing it, I just kept thinking like I'm just not equipped enough to do ministry the way I feel like I should be doing it. And so that led me to seminary. And then I had to think on that. Like, why am I in seminary? Like, it's not just to get an education, but
So you really didn't go to seminary because you
no,
felt called into ministry. You
no.
went to seminary because
I went to seminary because I said, I don't feel like I'm smart enough to lead a small group. And I feel like I'm leading small groups, and I should probably be a little more equipped to be able to talk about things. Like I felt like I never had the words to articulate it. I know I said that over and over. Like I just don't have the words. So my naive self thought I'll go to seminary because that's what normal people do when they want to learn more, which is not true. And so while I was there, like I had this secondary reckoning with like, what does it mean to be called into ministry? And then what does it mean to claim that as like a pastoral call to ministry, and to own that? And it was a really hard time to talk about that because of the climate of the United Methodist Church at the time. And so it was kind of a risk to name that, and it was only something that I felt that I could name because of the way that I had experienced community and belonging, and how I had been nurtured here, and how I had been affirmed in gifts along the way. And so I had to work through that. And so 3 years ago, I came on as a local pastor, and that was really wonderful, and it was different, and I still got to keep all these music things and add these other parts of discipleship and pastoral care, and worship, and that was really great. And so now in my kind of path towards ordination, I'm provisional, and I've realized that music is really important to me as like a talent and a passion. But I've recognized along the way that all of these things that I had been doing for so many years were rooted in this call, to pastoral ministry. And it wasn't the music, it wasn't the choir, although I love choir, I love when I was teaching, but it was about creating spaces of belonging and letting other people know that they are valued, that they are loved, that they are gifted and graced, and that there's a place for them. And I couldn't see at the time how that was bigger than me just saying, you can sing soprano. I think there's a place for you in the choir. But it was much more than that. And so, as I've kind of leaned into that understanding of my calling, it's kind of led me to a place of recognizing that music isn't the only place and the one place that is where I'm called to do this work. And so that's in the church. And so when we started thinking about Gibson, it's been a really interesting process to think about how do I do ministry outside of music, but still retain this calling that I have, for the church community, for the body of Christ in the world. And how does that look different? But my call is still, it's like a through line of my calling to create spaces of welcome, and belonging where people can know and experience the goodness of God, be a part of a community of faith, and do good in the world in the name of God, and our relationship with Christ along the way, how that calls us forward to do these things.
So, what do you think that's going to look like at Gibson? Like, let's do a little predictive future vision casting
What does it look like at Gibson
at this moment, because
at
we all
this
know that
moment?
this is developing, and this is risky to
Yeah,
say anything about what the moments ahead look like. But let's
yeah.
just jump in there and see what comes out.
I have no clue what this is going to look like. But the things that I know, the things that I value, the things that I think we as a church hold close, um, is that I see it being a place where we are able to offer fellowship and connection, where we are offering a place where people can come as they are, in whatever form that presents, that they can just be there to worship, to belong, to experience the fullness of the body of Christ in this place, in this context. Um, and worship may not look like it looks like here, at Forest Hill and like our main campus area with our 9 o'clock and 11, because we're going to be with different people who maybe aren't a part of this worshiping congregation. And so with new people, along the way comes everything that they bring with them. It brings with them their experiences, their needs, their passions, the ways that they live out their faith. And so it's hard, but I think important to be open to whatever comes from those conversations, comes from meeting new people. And it may be a worship service that starts with a song and a prayer and an offertory and a sermon. But it may also have those components mixed in with small group discussions about what it means to apply what they hear in a sermon, or what the good news is in their life and how they've experienced it, and talk with people sitting like at a table during worship about how they can live that out. And I think that's the beauty of the church, is that we walk with each other, we support each other on their journeys. And so I'm really excited to see what that might look like in a new place.
So, as we're envisioning a new worshiping community, I think that the question that begins to bubble up within people who are wanting to know more about what's happening is, not only what does that look like, but what are we expecting the time frame to be on that?
I think I'm very similar to you. So I have to get my mind bought in to the process, to understanding when and where and how it's going to happen. And part of the work in that is a callback to what we're doing in our discernment team, like being open to God working in a way that I don't anticipate. So I would love to say, like, we have this team, they're going to meet for 3 months. Then we're going to lay out a master plan to the congregation. This master plan is going to have a calendaring date for our first worship service. And I think we try to do that because we want to think about how do we get to the place that we hope to be. And so in this moment and this day, our hope is that we will be able to have a worshiping community sometime around Labor Day. But we want to do the work in the meantime to connect with our community, to hear where they are, to see how we can expand on our life together, because we're already connected to the community through our missions and our programs and things that we do. But being open along the way to maybe our timeline shifts because the thing that we hope to accomplish is a little different than we thought at first. But I think the thing that's important to hold is that we recognize what our vision is and our hope, and then how that is being translated. So are we being faithful to what God is bubbling up? Like, are we being faithful to what it means to be a part of a church? Are we being faithful in how we think about things and how we process things? And are we being open along the way to when there's something that pops up that might change the plan, that we can be open to hear what it is? Because I really like to say, like, I've already got the plan. Like, don't make me redo this work, or don't make me change. But I think that's something that's really important, to take a step back, to kind of breathe in the process. But in my head, in this day, Labor Day, we are worshiping at Gibson Village.
Maybe not on Labor Day.
Maybe not Labor Day. Maybe sometime
Maybe
when people are more in
Labor
town.
Day.
Yeah, when they're not enjoying time off in a Monday or.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So as we move toward that, like, there's going to be opportunities for the congregation to jump in and get involved in that. Can you just kind of, like, maybe not very specifically, but just an overview of, like, how are we all going to be a part of that? Is there a place for all of us to be a part of that?
Yeah, so we talk about the church, how we are all one body. Like, we all have our unique gifts. We have the things that we bring with us to the table. And there are going to be things along the way that we are doing or that we're exploring where people can lean into those gifts, that they can be more fully present in the process, especially if it's something they're passionate about. So our discernment team we're starting in prayer, and we're doing this month of prayer. And as a congregation, we've done some loose invitations to prayer. But we have
our Lenten prayer.
Yeah, we have our Lenten prayer. But our hope is that we can do a much more specific and intentional prayer group of people who gather to really help steep us in this process, to keep us grounded in our faith. So there's going to be invitations in the next month or so to be a part of a prayer team. Team's not the right word, but like a prayer group. There are going to be opportunities for questions and answers, because we know that we're not going to get all the right questions that you want or you have asked, but we want to give space for that. And so we're going to do some of those between worship services, after worship. And then we're going to set some time for us as a church to be in this space that we've done mission in, but not thought about in a new way. So,
you mean space, like a physical space?
Yeah. So in April, and it came out on our email for this week, but we're going to do a hot dog dinner.
Hot
dog. And if you know anything about Concord and churches, we love hot dogs in church.
Forest Hill hot dogs.
Yeah. So I don't want to give too much away kind of about the the behind the scenes of that. But we thought it'd be a great opportunity for fellowship, and we can do that in the space where we're looking to do worship, and we're going to be doing mission and ministry in different ways. And also, that will be a time where we can talk to each other, where our discernment team will be there, and people can ask questions and learn a little more. Maybe they're very specific questions that they haven't heard.
Mm-hmm. So as we embark upon all of this, because that sounds like a lot, like it's a lot. What are you most nervous about? There's lots to be excited about, but what are you nervous about? Is there anything? Maybe there's nothing to be nervous about.
Um, yeah, I think for me, the thing that I'm really nervous about is like, am I equipped and empowered enough to be able to lead in this new way? I've talked with you about that. But I love to follow. Like, following is like, that is where I really lean in. Like, if someone tells me this is what we need to do, I will be there to do the work. But to lead in this different way is a little outside of my comfort zone. It's not something I am used to, and I'm nervous about that. I'm nervous about using my voice in, like, not necessarily a prophetic way, but using my voice in leadership in this whole new kind of context. And do I do that well? Like, do I have what I need to do that? Um, and can it be successful? And some of that lands on me. And we talked about, like, not liking failing, and it's really okay to be okay with failure when you're not the one heading something.
Yes.
But when you have a bigger piece in that, like that, it really makes you rethink about things and think about how you do it.
So I think that you bring so much to the table, that you're really gift and grace for ministry. And I think many of us have seen your journey and seen what, from your 15-year-old self, that was really 24, really 24.
Yeah.
We look back on that and we see the ways that you have leaned into that, and the ways that you have used your voice, and the ways that you continue to learn and grow, and how your ministry is shaping up. And so I guess I just would encourage you to lean into those places and to claim them and honor them. We talk in the church about call, and we're all called, but understanding how we're gifted and graced to live out that call is really important. So I encourage you to do that. And I also hope that that feels affirming, because we have really seen your gifts for ministry just explode in the last few years.
It is not anywhere where I anticipated my life being. But I guess that's also that being open to the Holy Spirit working. But I appreciate hearing that too.
So we sit in this space where we don't have a lot of answers, and we're like putting things out into the world where we don't really know what it's going to look like, which is, for me, a nerve-wracking thing to do. But I want to ask you, in 2 years, if you go back and listen to this podcast, this conversation, at this moment in time, what do you really hope that will continue to ring true from our conversation today?
Yeah, so I think my first time, if I was to listen to this in a couple of years, my gut would be, oh my gosh, that's what I sound like, or like, wow, like I was a 15-year-old 2 years ago. Like, I really hope that there'll be growth. I really hope that this vision that the church is deeply a part of continues to grow and be clarified and flourish. And I hope that we can look back on it and say, like, yeah, I think we were being faithful in what we were doing, and be at peace with however it turns out, whether that's something huge and big or something unexpected. But just that we can say that we were part of a journey, and that we were true to that journey.
We are really excited to be on this journey. I'm excited to be on this journey with you as a staff person, and also just the church. I think we're all excited about what is going to bubble up, and kind of calling back to those meetings that we're sitting in where everybody's really excited. I think that excitement is just going to grow and flourish, and I just see a lot of really wonderful things happening. And so we're all on our journey.
Yeah,
it's fun to do it together.
Really exciting.
So in the next few weeks, we're going to have some other guests on. We're going to talk to Amanda Dyer in her new role as Director of Community Engagement. And we're going to have Don Rogers on to talk about hot dogs, the history of hot dogs, why hot dogs are important to like this moment in the life of the church, and how the legacy of hot dogs has gotten us to this place. And we're going to talk about that right before we have hot dogs together at Gibson Village. And so we have a lot happening, but we're really glad that you're on this journey with us. It really does take a village, which is the name of our podcast, but it really is about community and about doing this good, holy, faithful work together. So we are so glad that you are a part of this, and we hope that you will join us. So stay tuned. There is a lot more ahead.